expectations to their mindset. And invest some time. If your boss tells you, you need to see the results in half a year's time, ask somebody else to do your job, because this is losing. You're sitting on a sinking ship. This does not work. Even he, if he goes there, take it with a broad smile, because you'd rather stay back and renounce on the option than going down like he will. This is written on the wall, no chance. So make some time to establish this harmony, trust. We talked about these 4 key values. Sincerity. If this is not there, nothing will happen. Now, remain focused and composed and never demonstrate anger, irritation. Don't show that. Humor, the same. Impatience, frustration. No, it makes no sense. United States, tell me what it takes to make you sign a deal. See, if I give you 5%, will you be willing to sign the contract right now? This is kiss of death, because they say thank you for the 5%. They know you have 5% in the padding of the price, but we can't sign it today. You can't retract the 5% again. You just gave it to them. So don't give concessions to expedite the progress in negotiations. You can do so for a tit for tat. You give us, we give you. That's what we said when we talked about haggling. But if you think you do this to expedite things, to speed it up, it will not work. I'd like to make no comments on the next one, because we'll have a scenario on this when I run down into my office to pick up the other papers. Make allowances for practical flexibility. In other words, for us, the contract is irrevocable. That's why we sign it. It's legally enforceable. For them, it's something like a letter of understanding. That can be changed. This is just to make sure we understand what we are doing, sitting in the same boat. But other than this, legal enforceability, don't give me this. Again, because they don't have this legal mindset that we would have in the Western world. However, see the next sentence, don't get drawn into cultural quicksand. In other words, don't try to be the better Chinese. They will always be better at this. Sometimes if you need to have a contract, make sure you get a contract. If things need to be detailed and specified, make sure it is detailed and specified. And don't forget this overarching key sentence, better no deal than a piss poor deal. So if they don't want to give you all the details, they would say, oh, you produce t-shirts to the best quality possible. We'll give you the very best quality. What does that mean? Specify where the cotton comes from, the length of the thread, the dye they use to color it. Make sure you have that. And in case of doubt, allow them, remember the two labels, or the label in French and English in the shirts, have some sample products being manufactured. Take them in the contract and say, shirts like this. And then you have a quality that you can take as a benchmark. Mm-hmm. And scapegoat somebody else. Your boss is responsible for this. We need to have. Next is, again, when you negotiate in China, make sure you don't fall victim to that Stockholm syndrome. And you know what the Stockholm syndrome is?
I've heard.
It actually came up when terrorists, that was in the early days of these ideas of terrorists, when they occupied the embassy in Stockholm and they took hostages. So the army was storming the embassy, trying to liberate the hostages. And they didn't take care of the hostages, but tried to kill the terrorists. All of a sudden, the fire came from the hostages. And we haven't had this before, but psychologically it is, if you subject someone to an enormous pressure, psychological pressure, you start to adopting their ideas. What they say is what all of a sudden makes sense to you, because that gives you psychological relief. You're always in a situation where you are afraid they might kill you. All of a sudden, these hostages identified with the goals of these terrorists, which then eventually, again, psychologically speaking, very hard for us, we don't have that pressure, to understand. You then align totally with their interests. You know what? You don't even have to cage them in. They won't run away. They'll stay with you. This is because of that enormous psychological pressure they have. They had this also found out with girls. They have been raped a number of times and then put under enormous psychological pressure to serve as maids in a house, half naked, and I don't know what they had to serve. But you know what? You could leave the house and leave this girl in the house. She would not run away. She would not run away. Because it gives her psychological relief to consider all that happens around her as perfectly okay. I wouldn't say enjoy it. I didn't say that. But what I said is she would take it as okay and see no reason to run away. So basically what we learned out of this is, after Stockholm, that when they raid a place where they hold hostages, they make no difference between hostages and terrorists. They first off make sure none of them can shoot. None of them has a rifle. So they will take you as the hostage and you as the terrorist and take you out handcuffed. Because we don't know how you might respond. And this is not, again, something that is unusual. This is what the mind makes out of us. And this is what we mean when we talk about China. If you are now all of a sudden in this cultural quicksand, don't underestimate pressure from back home. So much money invested, so much time gone, no results. So you seem not to be the best person to be sent. Somebody else is pushing, come on, can I go? So all of a sudden, all these pressures are coming on you, that you eventually try to give in and say, okay, that's the way they are, hoping that the way they are is good. But basically, the way they are is the way they will rip you off. So make sure that you don't try to go native and not rock the boat over a certain level, because in that case, you're very easily manipulated and you are prone to ignore your own interests. Because you totally identify with, we have to understand, the Chinese say, we have to see, well, where are your interests? And that happens, this happens, also in negotiations, because of that enormous pressure. So basically, I told you, preparation is key. Set down at the very beginning the amount of information you want to share, the discounts you want to give, things like this, the time you want to invest in this. You will get this when you talk about the photocopies. Always negotiate with more than one counterpart, because you still can let the one fall off the cliff, and then you don't start again year, 1.5, to get to know each other inside. Do this at 2 parties. So if the one party shows no progress, focus on the other. So there is, anyway, when we talk about the negotiation style, there is no one-fits-all negotiation style available in China. The only thing I can tell you is there are negotiation styles that don't make sense. There's steamroller tactics. My first, my best, my last offer. Nobody can offer you something like this. You have to decide now. Doomed to fail. Playing hardball. It is 5%, take it or leave it. Gets you nowhere. If you go into red, limited pie, my win, your loss, and vice versa. Try to get the biggest slice of the pie. Makes no sense. What it's based on is the long-term interest. And didn't we have this face issue with that machine that broke down? Yeah. Remember the German company and the Chinese saying, see, you have this here again, because the focus is the long-term interest. If you help them out, remember, friendship is based on reciprocity. It's not a natural law, but there's a high chance that they will come across you and help you to find a new customer, for instance. Help you to get the permits you're looking for. Getting the goods into the country. So look at it from a long-term aspect and focus on collaboration and cooperation, not on that adversarial stance. And you look at this at a scenario in a few minutes. Don't show some inflexibility when it comes to some individual aspects of the contract at the expense of the overall long-term relationship. This is what it means before with this practical flexibility. It means, in other words, that even if the contract afterwards needs to be changed, change it. And again, of course, this is a tightrope. If they say you're changing it because simply they put pressure on you, then you're the weak guy. That's not the idea. But if you have to change the contract, ask for something in return. Don't forget, in Asia, a compromise is the best solution. So if they ask for something and you can give it to them, but you can, on the other hand, reach out your hand, and you find a common solution, this will cement your relationship. Remember the machines, that you are willing to help them repair the machines, but they have to take a training. They have to buy, or they will be interested to buy a new machine. Get you to contact and be the go-between. So this is how it works. But at the very moment you focus on the contract is a contract, you fall back to be an outsider. If you are insiders, we are family. And see, if your family member suffers from some problem, you will always be much more understanding and sympathetic than you would be if this is someone you don't know. You always try to protect. Where is the father who would, if his son made a mistake, would say, yeah, that's an asshole? You will, of course, try to protect your own flesh. So, and the same goes for a relationship in negotiations. Next, if you need something, always refer to external justifications. So don't say we need to have a higher price because, no. Focus, show them how energy prices went up. And as a result of this, you need to increase your costs. And you need to increase the price for a certain component. So it's not your company who does this, but external forces that do this to you. Because of competitors in the market pushing the price down, very outpricing your product in the market, you need to do something. We need to do something. They would understand. Provide them with evidence on this. Then.
Professor?
Yes.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
When you said when you're starting out of the relationship building, consider more than one person to initiate the partnership. So if either of the parties that I'm involved with figure out that I'm also dealing with their competitors, how would the Chinese or in general?
They would not like it. Don't let them find out. You definitely are not saying tomorrow we'll be in Beijing or your partners from so and so. No, you wouldn't. Mm-hmm. And they would not be in the interest of telling you that they would be negotiating with others. So you still do this without telling them. Mm-hmm. And it's a golden rule, even in supply. If you have a key supplier and that key supplier lets you down for whatever reason, you're lost. It takes you a year, too, to find another adequate supplier. Don't go into this trap. Always have another one stand by with a small lot. So you don't give the entire order to that company. You say, give 70% to this and 30% to this. Mm-hmm. Because both, and that's a good question, both will help you in a situation like this. Now, do me a favor. Here below in this blue box, you see a correspondence between a company in Great Britain and a Chinese supplier. And the Chinese supplier delivered substandard quality. Read through what they wrote to the Chinese. So basically, basically there's no way you could harm the situation more than taking on a Western stance. We will make you liable for all the extra costs we have. You pay for it, you deliver it substandard. Because what you just did is, you killed the relationship. That's it. If you tell them there will be no further business if you don't replace the parts, no. Remember the situation with the Christmas gadgets? I told you, right? The father who passed on.
Oh yeah.
See, the reason that this nephew was compensating for the damaged goods is because he saw, if I have to pay for the damaged goods, it might cost me 70,000, well, this is the sales price, 40,000 euros. But this guy is a long-term customer. So he will buy goods next semester, next Christmas, for the next Christmas, for the next Christmas. So I invest 40,000 now to get 120 over the next 3 years. So that makes it worthwhile doing it. If you tell them there's no future business if this ever happens again, you expect, if you compensate for the damage, they won't order any longer. So why should you compensate for it? Well, Mr. Gatz, but it's their fault. Yes, but in China, business is about business, not about ethical questions. You're right. Actually, they tried to cheat on you, so they should have bad conscience and now replace it. No. What counts for them is the amount that they could make out of future business. So their response, what will it be? Like the initial response, they will then be very surprised. Oh, product didn't work? I'm surprised. Oh, number one. Number two, no, it's not our fault. Shirts shrank, color went off. No, you washed it too hot. Use wrong detergent. So they will blame others for it. They will deny any fault, any responsibility. So and then if you push them on to, you have to pay for this, then it will be, don't call us, we call you. That's the end of communication, and chances are very high it's the end of your business relationship. So that's not the way you should walk. The quality problem will be fixed to avoid future problems, but this is not referring to your quality problem, but if they learn, hey, our shirts shrink, we need to take other cotton, then they will buy other cotton, not to run into the same problem. Also, they know, the very moment they know what happened, could happen as a result of the different cotton they use, they will deny again every responsibility, any fault. They will be very surprised. And why should we pay for your lost profits since you can't sell the shirts? Not our problem. I mean, if you don't sell the shirts, you make no profits. But why should we pay for your profits that you had to forgo? It's not our problem. Very hard for us to understand. For them, again, business is about business. I will compensate you if I see, and only then, that the future business will exceed the costs of repairing the situation right now. If I don't see this, there is no repair. So don't expect any conflict resolution as a result of a quality claim to be based on moral obligations, ethical obligations of fairness. They don't have it in their mind. It is, you delivered some quality, then it should be responsible. No. Your problem, you want it. So, dispute or conflict resolutions are strictly based on what we just said, business. So, it will be based on the future profits they can make. If you write them now an email and say we are bitterly disappointed, and I'm going to show you this in a minute. What happened? Because the shirts shrink. I'll show you a photo of what looks like new, what looks like after it has been washed 2 times. And we washed it with a so-and-so material and a so-and-so machine. So, and you know what? We actually wanted to enlarge into selling men's shirts for business purposes, and thus order even more shirts from you. And that's not the, unfortunately we can't do this now. No. We are really interested in ordering more shirts from you. So please advise. And then you will find out. If you don't get an answer, they don't buy into it. In other words, you're out. Hard luck. You can try to enforce your rights via legal ways, but we'll talk about legal ways in 20 minutes. I have to run over to my office, get the other photocopies, and you would be surprised. It will not help you. The only thing that will help you, if you can credibly bring across there's future business in it for you. Do you really want to renounce on this? That's the idea that will make the move, nothing else. In the Western world, we put forward a threat. There, no. Why? They don't have a sense of an efficient legal system. They don't have it in them. So, and enforcement, no. I told you, you might even get a ruling in court that you are right. But then, again, you can hang it in the toilet to read it. I really mean it. I don't want to be vulgar. You can't enforce it. You go there and say, this is what the court ruled. They grin at you and say, so what?
Professor, like, even if you are a good negotiator or something, if you have no chance in the court,
Yeah.
you will same risk all the time.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, like, it's not very useful. Like,
Yeah.
like whatever you do,
Yes.
you are going to lose in the court. So
Yes. That's why I'm grinning. This is why you can never underestimate the importance of trust, sincerity, and this is what the term says, loyalty. If I trust what you tell me is true, and we want to order more shirts from your company. I mean, this is nonsense. But if you can really show, you started ordering 10,000, 15,000, 17,000, and now this happens, you can show, looking back, that you want to increase the orders. So they see, wow, that's a customer who is not a one-off. If you're a one-off, who does the first business deal with them, chances that they will respond is zero. If they see you are a long-term customer, remember what we said before, helping each other, they will try, again, deny any responsibility. The goods must have been stolen by our customers. Oh, we're surprised to hear this. Same thing. Exactly the same thing. So, but, again, if they see that you are a potential customer, long-term, where they can still make some profits, this is the only way out.
what if such a thing happened at the beginning of the relationship?
Mm-hmm. Then it's the question of the quality. Yes, you're right. It's a question of the quality of the loyalty you have established with the counterpart. I really mean it. This is the way that it's all. Don't look at me like, oh, devious. This is the way, and still, don't forget, China is a major trading partner.
Yes.
So, and this is the way they do it. You wouldn't believe how many Western companies really went home from China with a red nose because they tried to ignore and establish Western standards. They shit on the Western standards. And the more they became economically powerful. I give you now another evidence to show why they really focus on their own way of doing things. In former days, speaking English was something that would give them also prestige. You know, it's the jokes on the street wouldn't learn English. But if you could speak English, it shows sophistication, a certain tier in their social fabric. You would be higher, middle, or upper tier. And if you have a kid, you send that kid. I close it a bit. If you had a kid, you would send it to extra calligraphy lessons. I rephrase that. They talk about the little emperors, the kids, because as a result of this one-child policy, now they have everybody caring about this one kid. So your parents take care of you, your grandparents' father's side, your grandparents' father's side, mother's side. They will spoil you deluxe. But this also comes at a price. You get calligraphy lessons, you get some instrument to learn to play, and you learn English. The reason I'm telling you this is, nowadays, if you want to do business with the Chinese, they look at you and say, why do we have to speak in English? We are 1.4 billion people, 1,400. You're in Germany or in the UK and even the United States can match that. And hang on, do we want to do business in our country? Or do we want to do business in your country? Aha. So if you want to do business in our country, why do we have to learn your language? Why don't you learn ours? So in other words, I really mean it. I'm not talking from a right-wing perspective. The Chinese are very nationalistic. And to some extent even racists. If you are in Shanghai, they consider Shanghai to be superior to the rest of China. The rest is bumpkins. So if you come from rural areas or mid-China, blah. Girl from Shanghai, oh. Yes, it's true. And Shanghai has always been somewhat stubborn. When China was closed, Shanghai was the open city. So if I've been there, and I perceived this myself, how they treat each other. So there was somebody else who was picking up a conversation on some touristic spots, and afterwards the Chinese said to me, Mr. T, why, and he explained that to me. Rural area. Okay. So, yes, and so, an isolated incidents, they really see it. If you ask seasoned hands, yes. So, and they are also very nationalistic. And this is very typical for Asian countries. Japan came, according to their philosophy, came into existence because the gods were fucking in space. You have nicer words. They made love. And while they were going for it, like hell, they started sweating. And one drop of that sweat fell on the earth. And this is where Japan emerged. But this is the way they see their country as something very elected, very chosen. You know, gods made love, and the result of that, Japan came into existence. This is not a philosophy that I made up because I'm drunk. No, this is what they really believe. So they are a friend of mine who is married to a Japanese, and my statement is, and I do cross-cultural trainings, there's only one place where you can overcome cultural differences. The same goes for black and white. You can have so many rules and regulations, forget it. Put them in a bed, have them make sex, have a child, then mostly, if you're a white and your wife is a black, and you have a kid in between, that kid knows both worlds. And that kid would be the first that represents interests of both sides. So here this guy was for 20 years in Japan. He still is a gaijin, married to a Japanese, having children, but he is the outsider, the foreigner. And he also looks different. Westerner, Asians look different. You could immediately say that this is no Asian. He would never be accepted on eye level. You don't understand this. You don't understand that. No, you're not a Japanese. You must be a Japanese to understand. This is their mindset. And I'm telling you all this for you to get this a little bit into perspective. They are very proud on, I heard this so often over the last years, if you want to do business in our country, why do we have to speak English? Learn Chinese. And it depends on how you see it. From their perspective, it might even make sense. Why do they have to adjust? I mean, you want to do business in their country, not in our country. The same is, by the way, true if they come into our country, why don't they learn German? And man, would you be surprised how they do learn German. Mr. Dahl and me, who have been in this general management course, we had a Chinese student. His German was oh la la. Nothing to write home about. Guten Tag, wie geht es Ihnen? That's it. Not very much more. And after the 3 semesters, we met him on the path to the cafeteria. That guy spoke pretty good German. And we asked him, complimented him, then how do you do this? He said, every week he was learning 150 vocabs. So they have, in the Confucianism, education is a key value. And for them, if they want to survive in Germany, they know we need to speak that language. So they learn it. So if you want to come to my country, China, why don't you learn Chinese? Can you speak Chinese? No. So, why don't you learn it? Why do I have to speak English with you? So this is their mindset. I'm telling you this, that you need to know that when it comes to situations like this, there is no way that you can, but this is not against Westerners, this is the way they treat each other. There's no way that a court ruling would be really helpful, number one, because the enforcement will be, on top of all the other problems, a critical issue. Number two, there is no, in the Western world we have this media coverage that would pick it up. They don't have it. And number three, last but not least, it has improved, but their customer service is not what we would understand as customer service in the United States. I mean, we in Germany also, when it comes to customer service, are mostly piss poor. But I'd say the Chinese have picked up to somewhat of the level of Germany. But if you talk to someone from the United States, their understanding of customer service is another one. So definitely not what we understand as service. So if there's a problem, there's nothing you can rely on other than bringing across you want to do future business with them. That's the only way that you could survive in such a situation. Now, read that through. Just a box, and I'll let you some time to read it. Now read it. So you see, when you write and when you face a complaint, this is what you need to focus on. We are happy working with you, value our continuing relationship, and have significant orders that we expect to place with you in the near future. That focuses on two aspects. A, you don't want to terminate, forget the relationship. Where was this one? Other way around. Here. Clearly your fault. And you're willing to end the relationships in case of. No. And they don't say, in former years we were ordering 5 tons, now we're interested in ordering 500 tons. They smell the rats. But hey, we're happy to work with you and we value our relationship and we have a significant number of further offers or orders we'd like to share with you. Reference to not terminating the relationship but continuing it. There's future business in it for them. And then we have just received a shipment that we are unable to sell due to the conditions of the goods. And you describe it, take photos, show it to them. And then, remember, they love to be in the driver's seat. It gives them face. So you're not telling what they have to do, but what you would basically ask her is, you describe the quality problem and then please advise the best way to resolve this issue. So, in other words, the Chinese partner is now requested to make a solution. That's different to you threatening them, taking face. You ask them and you provide evidence. If you want us, we can send you some shirts. Here you have some pictures. No problem to send you the shirts. And by the way, we really wanted to, we love the shirts we got from you, and we would love to continue that relationship and expand into, pants. So that is to them, like Christmas gadgets, a reason to say, hallelujah, let's pick up the slip and pay for the damage that happened. And they might not pay 100%, but at least some of it, and it might be then eventually compensated via other means than just money from one table to the other. So, in other words, no reference to terminating the relationship, future business potential, no confrontational tone that would take face, and Chinese partner should make a suggestion. Now, you're asking what I had in one of the preceding exams when it comes to China. I was saying, in case of a complaint, if you have to write and inform your Chinese counterpart about the complaint, about your complaint, how would you set this letter, this email up. What are the key criteria? 8 points, 2 for each. And basically you need, this is survival know-how. I mean, if you do business with them and you do it the Western world, or you're certain that it's your fault, and you have to replace this, and you go down. There's ice under your feet will break. It's the only way. And again, I know I'm talking like an old man. I am an old man. But what I want to say is, remember this Christmas gadget incident. It only came through the way it did since there was long-term business in them on the horizon. And he could have kicked his own ass that he treated the insider as an outsider. And he was willing to invest the difference and perhaps even buy our customs to goods were stolen. You know what? Let's play that alternative. Could be. But they still were willing to replace it for the benefit of a long-term, mutually beneficial relationship. This is what you need to have in your mind. The Germans are very difficult with that. We want to know who's at fault, and we need to find out. Again, if the photocopier breaks down, we are interested in repair, but first of all, we need to find out who did it. For us, the scapegoat is important. That is our culture. In their culture, you don't have that. So, how to enforce your quality claim effectively? Well, first off, find out how much they value your relationship. And you can do this easily because the indicators that you would have for this is A, the time they will require to answer this. If you don't get an answer within a couple of weeks, then they give up on you. Don't even try. There's nothing to get out of this. Respectively, what kind of suggestions do they make to remedy the situation? Remember, Christmas gadgets, full replacement. Half of the replacement. Special discount next time. Find out what kind of approach they take to remedy the situation. And again, what I would do is I would tell them the amount of money. Remember when I said what the boy should tell his father? Tell this old guy the amount of money that is at stake for you. It means that you might go to the wall because 70,000 is money for a single retailer. So that's exactly what's on the list here from a German perspective. Point out the actual sum of money involved, make suggestions how to apportion the losses. Who is willing to take on some of that loss? When this young guy asked me, I couldn't answer this, like God comes down from heaven and tells him what to do now, this is the way to go. I followed my own transparencies. Click, 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 click. China complained, what do we do? I did exactly the same, what we have here. And be ready to compromise, remember? Because a compromise shows your willingness to make nobody lose face, shows your willingness to seriously continue the relationship, not just say it, but also do it. And last but not least, this may pay a dividend in the long term. If they see that you really mean this, if you're not ripping them off, they will perhaps compensate for that by giving you a special discount you would not even have expected the next time you negotiate with them. Deliver earlier, make you a preferred customer, accept smaller lot sizes. Ask Mr. Dahl if they need to meet certain quality levels. Then these guys have a certain concept of order size. So if you come and order, like he said, sports socks, and you show up and say, well, we would need about 6,000 spaced out over 12 months. There's a laugh and they go. But if you've already ordered t-shirts and sweaters, and now you need to have 6,000 socks. See? This is how it works. So, again, this is the way you settle a claim. So the Chinese perception of your strategic business potential, again, is always depending on, is this a long-term customer or is it a one-off? And what does it cost to settle the claim of the other party? If the costs are smaller than the potential profits from future business, they'll go for it. the very moment they see even future business will take a long time to cover the costs that are involved, you're lost. There's no other way out. So, in other words, from the beginning of your relationship, and remember that's what I told you in the middle of our course, we adopted this from the Chinese. Do two things. A, establish the relationship and influence the strategic perception of the business potential that you hold for that Chinese. So it's not a one-time business. You always have to focus on you're here to do business with you long term, with growing numbers. And not, okay, we'll have one contract and then let's see. That doesn't sell. That definitely will not sell. So the higher your business values to the Chinese, the more respective they will be, and the more there's a chance for a fair and timely sell benefit. If your business value is considered low, you're willing to sever our bonds with you, it's bye-bye. So you see, if the UK writes out that email, you're lost. You just killed literally yourself. Now, when you now come into next transparency, and then we'll have a brief break. When you come into this problem of having a claim as a result of poor quality, or for whatever, sending the goods too late, or you just name it, then basically you have to take two key decisions. That's on it. A framework for an effective settlement approach. Number one, you want to not be doing, you don't want to do any further business with them. For you, that's it. And even if you write this, they might read in between the lines, there's no chance that this Gatz will order further goods from us. It would be an idiot. No, he definitely will not do this. Then the options you have is, we'll talk about this in a minute. Mediation, number two, arbitration, number three, litigation. And I have to make a few critical comments on this in a minute. If you want to continue the relationship, it should be continued, then you must remember, we said it is a give and take. It is a compromise. You must think about options like this. I have 3, 4 critical ones, namely, you might get a voucher to get goods in the future at a lower price. They might replace some of the t-shirts and send you new ones. They might, for instance, also give you a certain discount when you buy the next lot of shirts. There's a lot of different aspects that they would be willing, and it could be a mixture of all this. They will take back some of the shirts, they will give you a certain voucher that you can use for your next order, they will give you a certain discount afterwards. That is, let's see if I can draw one. Come on. These are the typical responses that you should focus on, and again, focus on the continuation of this business relationship that should be overriding the claim. The problem at the right side is basically you can give up. And now I'm going to tell you how this works. Really, you're listening, but I just want to make sure you understand that. Because in the Western world, you don't pay. I'll give you a very good example. I bought a new car, which is a hybrid car. And they couldn't deliver it on time. So and again, Western world, they at least, however, were able to bring the car onto German ground, and then you get a certificate that shows the ownership of this car, that this is yours. If you have the ownership certificate, you can apply for the 4,000 euros in subsidies for hybrid cars. The program runs out, or ran out, 31st of December last year. So if I hadn't had the certificate, I still don't have the car, it's somewhere here in Germany, but I got the certificate, so I own the car, and I could apply for the 4,000 euros, and it's perfectly legal. So, but if you want to claim this money, you must have registered the car. So basically, you get license plates. Mm-hmm. So it's actually the company that does it for you, the dealership. They will go to the authorities, register your car with the license plate, you have the number for your car, your license plates, and this costs you 129 euros in Germany. Now I got a first reminder. So I called them and said, hallelujah, would you please be so kind and send me a bill first? And you really have now to be, or an invoice, you really have now to be quick, because they can in Germany, they send you, that's what I'm telling you this, they send you a bill, you don't pay, they send you an invoice, if they're friendly, they don't have to, and then they will take it into legal actions, and they'll make it very expensive, and the thing will go to court. So you've got to respond now, because if you fail to do so, you're running into trouble. So I still can, I have no evidence, I was calling them a number of times, hey, send me please a bill. As long as I don't have a bill, it's no money. I still, when I came home today, there was no bill. So let's see how they will respond. However, they could take me to court, and then this matter will be settled. In China, not every case is qualified to go to court. First off, you must deliver, it's really true, I'm not making this up. You first off have to deliver evidence that the two of us went into amicable post-negotiations. That's the first thing. Amicable post-negotiations. In other words, we both met and tried to remedy the problem. Good. And it's not until this leads or has led to no result that you're allowed to go into mediation. Mediation means, and this again where you need to go between, we both met as a result of him getting the two of us together. It could also be someone whom you trust and I trust. Now, we have a problem here, say quality-wise, and I paid you 40% less for the goods because they will be very difficult to be sold in the German market to a certain segment of customers. So I have to lower the price for selling it, less profits, 40% less. Good? We couldn't agree on anything. We bring him in. That's mediation. So in that case, he will make a suggestion. You present your side, I present my side, and then you say, hey guys, listen, I think 40 is too much. 20 is good. So I might say, forget it. You might say, forget it. We both might say, forget it. It's not until then that you're allowed to go into arbitration. Arbitration is based on someone arbitrating on our case without us necessarily knowing them, or him, or her. Most it's a panel. So it's that group that will now decide. And you might say, Gatz, 40% is much too much, let's say 20%. And I say, no. And you say yes, or I say yes, and he says no. Or we both say no. It's not until then that you're allowed to bring this case to court. I can rephrase this and say, your case does not qualify for court until you underwent amicable post-negotiations, until you underwent mediation, until you underwent arbitration, and all three failed. Now, can you imagine what that means if a German and a Chinese is now doing business with each other, running into a conflict, and then he is the Chinese, and I want to bring this case to court. So if you try to get this to court, they will dismiss the case. It does not qualify. Why not? You have to go into post-amicable negotiations, or amicable post-negotiations. Okay? Then you talk with them a month, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then you say, that's enough. Now let's go into mediation. No. Come back. Let's talk. Can you imagine how long this can be dragged out? So, basically, you can put this in nicer words, I know. But basically, there is a life vest. You only need to have added certain sentences in the contract. And this would make you survive. Why? What? Well, in the business contract, what you write down is, in case of any conflict, both parties allow 3 months for amicable post-negotiations. Both parties in advance agree on mediation after the failure of amicable post-negotiations and the time of 3 months. So, no, come back, let's talk. It will no longer work. Don't make the same mistake with the mediation. We will allow 3 months of mediation to come to a final decision. Failing to do so, if mediation fails, we will go after 3 months into arbitration. So then you're in arbitration. And then again, you can set a time limit for arbitration. So your case qualifies for court. I still didn't say you win it, but can you imagine how far away you are from a conflict solution if you don't have these 3 minor sentences in the contract? And sometimes I think it's ignorance. I mean, I'm telling it you, I was telling you a number of other people, you can bring in some lawyers, they will ask you what if and what, and hey, you can make it more complicated, but basically that's it. Even if you do this in handwriting and put it on the back of the contract, you're safe. But you wouldn't believe how many companies ignorant of this legal process, again, like in Germany, if I don't pay, they give me mostly a week's time or 2 weeks' time, they can take legal actions. They don't have to get a reminder to me. This is a friendly way of doing it, but legally you meet all the prerequisites. If you send me an invoice and I don't pay, it says on the invoice, has to be paid within 2 weeks. On the 15th day, I could take this thing to court. So here you could show up at court, they laugh at you because you don't qualify for court. We have not talked about all the other problems, but you see how far away you are and why I am so much stressing the impact and the importance of that functioning relationship. Because if we two have that relationship, and we both see future business ahead of us, and you see me not as a one-time customer, and we have values established like loyalty, sincerity, trust, you don't need all this. And it also explains why in the Chinese society, if you have to take a case to court, actually both parties lose face as a result of your inability to interact decently. You must be able to solve that problem out of court. Failing to do so is not, remember, it's not black and white. Even if you win it, you lose face. So this is why it's relatively complicated to get this case, if you have a quality claim, fought through. So, and again, I remember in another test paper I was asking what kind of options would you have if there is a quality claim? How could you settle this claim? So basically it was that transparency. And it makes no sense to say you need to bring in the right words. No, you need to bring in the right order. You can't say we have arbitration first and then you go to mediation. That doesn't make sense, does it? So, having talked about this, is the last one I'd like to look at, namely the external pressure. So in other words, we have two approaches. The zero-sum game, which is confrontative, adversarial, fighting. Your costs can represent their benefits. Your benefits come at their costs. It is considered as everyone's looking out for his or her own interests. no good. It is, remember the presentation? What's the benefit for the two of us? So that's the wrong approach. We need this, we need that. If you take the external threat approach, we are asking for something because it's forced upon us. Higher energy prices, higher raw material prices, something that doesn't allow us to sell the goods at the price or the components at the price we would like to sell them. So it's not your fault that you're not trying to rip them off even more. It is something that has been enforced upon you. This is again, I can't tell you what is the best negotiation approach. This, however, is part and parcel of it. That you always focus on the others. And then here is an idea how to proceed. You put forward some reference to competitors, to development of oil prices, some market research. So that would show that there is no intent to go into confrontation, to get the larger piece of the pie, but you need to compensate for things that are brought upon you from outside. That will preserve the relationship. Why should this risk the relationship? This is actually for the other party a face-gaining activity, because what you just did is, if you ask for a higher price, help us to get out of that predicament. And if they can now decide if they want to do it or not, that gives them the feeling of superiority, and they gain face as a result of this. So bring the Chinese in. Remember the presentation. We too need to fight this, higher energy prices, that, higher raw material prices. So you have an external justification for what you want to have. And here's the very last aspect, and I will go into a break. Namely, I'd like to focus on this one, unaccountability and hidden variables. Where do we have them? Here. What is hidden variables? It means, I think I already showed you this. If you have a price of 100 euros for a component that you buy from wherever, let's assume 40 euros is profits, 60 is your costs. You sell it at 100 euros. Now you manage to get a 10% discount. Then we assume the 10% will bite into this profit part, right? In the Western world it does. In the Chinese part, that's the part that will remain the same. What they will do is, they will go into, now all of a sudden, re-engineering gets a new connotation. Because you have hardly left their compound. They will call the engineers in, what can we do to lower the price? So hidden, that's why it says hidden variables. If you order a shirt, you have to define what kind of buttons you want to have, what kind of cotton you want to have, what kind of dye you use. Mostly to stiffen your color, they put an extra piece of cloth into that color. Make sure it's written down, because if you don't write down, there needs to be a certain cloth in the color. You want to have a discount, that color is, this cloth in the color is gone. You want to have a certain discount, they will buttons where you might get, if you take bone buttons, you get 100 for a certain amount of money. For the same amount, you get 1,000 plastics. But the downside of the plastics is, if you get with the iron against it, it breaks. You have to agree on this. Dye. I told you about a black t-shirt. A black t-shirt is black, yes? Now what kind of black? Is this black as black color being produced? Or is that black the result of pooling all the remaining colors? Take blue, take red, take green, put it in the same pot, it turns blackish. So, there's another way they can save money. They use cheaper cotton, shorter thread cotton. The longer the thread, the more expensive it turns out to be. So, shorter threads in a cotton. If you haven't agreed upon this, they will change it. You get this shorter cotton. So in other words, that's why we call it the hidden variables. You must make sure that in your contract, and again, scapegoat your boss for it, every variable is explicitly determined. Because for us, again, when we talk about this variable, we think the other variables are constant. But now expand my idea. I go for bone buttons, and they will agree, but then they eventually will take out the cloth from the color. So you must make sure you've written down color cloth, bone buttons, original color for dye, cotton that has a certain length. Failing to have this, this will be the area where they will, of course, go to try to reverse the engineering. In your world, they will replace metal corks with plastic corks. They will, instead of using silver, they will use copper. And there are lots of things that really have a severe impact in terms of down engineering, reverse engineering. As a result, this is typical China. When we discuss one aspect and we agreed on this, it stays constant for the rest of the time. And we have all the other things constant, even if we don't talk about them. This is part of the shirt. No, if you go for a lower price, there will be a re-engineering process that will kick in to lower that quality standard. And if you don't have it written down, what kind of color, what kind of cotton, what kind of material, you're lost out. So in other words, make sure that when you negotiate with them, that all variables are disclosed. Ask questions, specify them, bring it down in writing. Make sure it is being written down. Oh, we have a wonderful relationship. Be careful, kill with a knife in your smile. So scapegoat your boss saying, no, my boss expects me when I come home that I tell him what kind of cotton we use, what kind of color there is, just to avoid future conflicts. That sells. By the way, I see you're getting tired of me talking. That's the weather. People, seriously, it's another aspect. If you feel tired, there's no need to go to a doctor. It's not that my lessons is more boring today than the rest of the time, but this is the weather that really makes you tired. I had this yesterday. I had to listen into a number of presentations. Man, did I have to fight. Yes, it's different for me because I can walk around. And you know what was the worst time for me was when we had this damn corona. And I was sitting across from the screen. And you're talking into a little greenish light where the camera is. And you talk. Man, does this feel comfortable. And you talk, and you see your eyes wandering around. And you say, oh, last minute. Then I mostly managed to switch off the camera for a second to walk a little bit around. Yes, because if you sit all the time, there could be a moment where you really fall asleep, and this is normal. So it took me years to find out when I was a student. I never thought the other side would see this. When we had classes from 1 o'clock till 3 o'clock, that my eyes would go. And I never thought the other side would see it, but you see it from the other side as well. When I realized this, I still thought that teacher really liked me, because I could do whatever I wanted to do. Between 2 and 3 o'clock, I would have these power naps. And I could remember there was even in class a moment where I would kind of be shocked because I knew I was asleep, hopefully only a few seconds. The worst thing is if this happens to you in a car. Yes, that happened to me a number of times when I was in teachers training. We were touring lots of places in Schleswig-Holstein, and the sun would shine in. It was winter, we had snow, and you would be driving at a very short night. And then in Schleswig-Holstein, the roads are mostly very straightforward. You're driving and driving and driving. You hear some music, and that could be very risky. A number of times we took the car to the side and went for a walk a little, you know. Or when I visited my wife in hospital and I was going down there in the afternoon, I started singing.
Is it also possible, Professor, that in such cases you drive along with a co-partner so that you guys can switch?
Yes, if you have someone you could do, yes, of course. But what do you do? I remember I was up to Denmark, and it was again, same thing, afternoon, warm weather, and we had a weather change, you start to get tired. So there's no way to go and pull the car over and go on a car park. So I really started I really mean it. I was sitting in the car singing to make sure I would not fall asleep. So don't you start singing in my next lesson. See you in 50 minutes.